It's Carter, man. It is July 6th, Thursday. And I want to take just a minute, if I may, to make three what I think are key points about the decision handed down on July 4th, appropriately enough, Independence Day, by U.S. District Court Judge Terry Doughty, I think he pronounces his name, in Missouri versus Biden. Missouri versus Biden. That's the case. Some of you are going to recognize it right away, where the judge ruled that the United States government had violated the First Amendment of the Constitution over and over again. As a matter of fact, he cites 25 instances. If you get a chance, read it. It's a 150-page decision. Very, very well written, very powerfully written. At one point, he says, in his conclusion, he says, the United States government seems to have assumed a role similar to the Orwellian Ministry of Truth. That's pretty serious, folks. That's pretty serious. And unfortunately, it's made all the more serious because it's so well warranted. The United States government has now become the chief censor of the American people, deciding what we should be allowed to say and what we should not be allowed to say. And that's what the judge makes clear in this case. The government, and he names defendants up one side and the other, dictated to the social media what they should be allowed to say, what they should allow Americans to say about the COVID, the COVID, the government's COVID pandemic. I'm not going to say a lot about it because I'll be censored by the very people who the government worked with to censor us all along on this topic. But there are 3 points to make. One is that this decision, as you read it, reveals that the United States, and I want to say this very clearly, has descended into the abyss of barbarity. Okay? We've descended into the abyss of barbarity. For the government, the Biden administration, to decide it could censor every word the American people say, and as the judge's decision makes clear, they got angry if any amongst the social media, Facebook, Twitter, the whole bunch of them, wouldn't completely go along. Now, didn't have a lot to get angry with because the radical leftist at the social media hegemonies were more than happy to censor the American people. But as you read it, you realize it's government-wide, this descent into barbarity. I mean, the names of the defendants in the case who lost, who the judge ruled against: Joe Biden, Toxic Joe, of course, Jean-Pierre, Karine Jean-Pierre, his press secretary. Then you have the Health and Human Services. These are departments of government, departments of the U.S. government that all conspired to censor the American people, as this judge rightly points out. Health and Human Services, National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, CDC, of course, U.S. Department of Commerce, U.S. Department of Justice, of course, the FBI, naturally, the Food and Drug Administration, the Department of State, for God's sake, the Census Bureau, the U.S. Election Assistance Commission. It was universal in our government to censor the American people, every word you said. Then, as you read through it, you know, the first citation by the judge was forcing the digital director for the White House COVID response team, instructed Twitter to remove a tweet by Robert Kennedy Jr. That they disagreed with, and they said, and you are to, in the future, censor, but have better oversight of any such similar tweets. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. not allowed to express his own opinion. March 19th, 2021, the White House designated 12 people as reporters for Twitter's partner support portal, which allows for the flagging of content for censorship. Yeah. Very open about it, folks. It was no secret as to what our government was doing to us. Okay. On the April 6th, Flaherty, he was one of the top villains, a top White House aide to Biden, emailed Facebook to question why the company was not censoring certain controversial and harmful public figures. That's the role of the White House, to decide who are controversial and harmful public figures. It's frightening. It's chilling. It's chilling. It goes on and on. It goes on and on. Here you have the White House, and Flaherty demanded an explanation from Facebook on why they weren't using, they weren't taking inadequate action, why they were taking inadequate action against misinformation. And it says here, the judge points out, he used very strong language to express his frustration. Who do they think they are? Who do they think they are? So it goes on and on. So that's the first point. The point that that our government became our censor, telling us what we are allowed to say. Make no mistake about it. This was a government action in total violation, as the judge points out, of the First Amendment. The second point is that that all these social media went along with it so willingly. Okay, that they went along with it so willingly, and didn't say to him, wait a minute, what about freedom of speech? It's never raised in the entire 155-page judge's ruling. Okay, so the first point is the fact that we now know the government acts as a censor of everything you say. The second point is that, thank God, one judge has stood up against it. Of course, the media is eviscerating him, eviscerating his decision, the lapdog lickspittle media. So that's the second point, a very important point, that the Biden censorship forces, the Biden Ministry of Truth, is going to appeal it probably all the way to the Supreme Court. And let's hope the court comes out on the right side of that. Then the third, I'm going to close with this, but it bothers me. It bothers me a lot. I'm looking at who the plaintiffs are, okay? Plaintiffs consist of the state of Missouri, the named plaintiff, Missouri versus Biden, state of Louisiana, Dr. Aaron Kheriaty, Dr. Martin Koloff. These are very brave and courageous people. Jim Hoft, I think, over at the Pundit, Gateway Pundit. Dr. Janyanta Bhattacharya, and I'm sure I'm butchering that, and there's a woman named Jill Hines. What strikes me, and this is my final point, is whose names are missing from this. I think some of you are going to know what I'm going to say. I'm looking, hold on a second, let me double check here. I'm looking for Mitch McConnell. It's not there among the plaintiffs. Oh, how about Kevin McCarthy? Not there among the plaintiffs. How about any of the 220 Republican members of the House of Representatives, or the 49 members of the Republican members of the U.S. Senate? Let me double check. No, they're not there. There's the whole list of plaintiffs right there. You don't see any of the members of Congress. No politician's name who claims they're on our side stood up for our freedom of speech, for our First Amendment, for our Constitution. None. Next time you see your congressman, I'm going to be asking Scott Perry, my congressman, where were you? Where were you when it came time to take a stand for what was right? What you did was wrong, and that's head out for the tall grass. Should have been part of this lawsuit. Should have at least filed an amicus brief. We don't see anything there about that. So once again, the politicians let us down, didn't they? Those who were supposed to represent us, nowhere to be found. They took a hike, and here's what we need to do. We need to make it clear to them, you take a hike on us again, and we're going to take a hike on you on Election Day. because we're fed up with not just misrepresentation, but no representation in one of the most important cases to come down the pike. So we got to fight back. It's our freedom at stake, as this judge has made clear. The U.S. government turned Orwellian on us, and we need to fight that tooth and nail, including tell the politicians, hey, from now on we expect you to be front and center. Let's do this thing, folks.